In today's video, we have breaking news. Democrats are now openly threatening to prosecute their political opponents. Secondly, a district court judge has ruled that ICE has to remove the gate from the ICE detention facility. And finally, male grooming standards have turned into a racial issue. In all these stories, we're going to show you what both sides are saying and then give you the bottom line.
The tables will turn someday. These people should recognize that maybe they're not going to get prosecuted today, although we're looking at doing that, but they may get prosecuted after the Trump administration for the things that they did because the statute of limitations won't have run. You know, we had the immigration services, ICE and CBP doing their jobs before the Trump administration, but they were doing it within the law. Now they're acting like a bunch of thugs and taking away people's free speech rights. They're taking away people's rights, by not identifying themselves. They're coming in with masks on. They're coming in with unidentified vehicles. These are all things that need to be taken up, again, by an inspector general or somebody investigating at the federal level because they have immunity at the state level. But we're looking at how we might be able to hold them responsible despite the fact of federal immunity.
Now, would you imagine that? You got J.B. Pritzker threatening federal authorities that he will seek to prosecute them once the Trump administration comes to a close. Now, doesn't that sound eerie similar to what they're accusing the president of doing? Prosecuting his political opponent. But here's the difference, though. J.B. Pritzker clearly laid out that they are going to seek to prosecute meaning ICE officials. I didn't know you wanted to go after them. They're just doing their constitutional duty. Well, he's not the only one to issue this threat today. So did MSDNC tonight. Take a look.
Look, I don't understand it. Maybe you have a little bit more insight, and I get the piece about the threats to family. But I would think as members of Congress, if you know that that's coming down the pike, that you would be proactive about that and write the law that basically says, okay, y'all come after us, be ready, because we got something for you.
Well, you would think that that would be the case, but unfortunately, it seems like most of these lawmakers forget that there will come a day where Trump will no longer be in power, but everything that they've done to kind of go along with all of these abuses of power, that dishonor will remain. And so that will be their legacy. And I wish that they would take that into account. I understand that there are so many factors, and I sympathize with them about the concerns for safety. It's something that I had to think about when I decided to break with Trump world.
And there you have it. You have another threat that they are minting out loud, where once Democrats come into power again, they're going to prosecute everybody who's a part of the Trump administration, even if they follow their constitutional duty. And the interesting part about all this is that it's one thing to prosecute or investigate someone because you know there's evidence of crimes or you believe there's evidence of crimes, so you're going to investigate them. But then it's another just because you hate what the president was able to accomplish. And that's really what's going to happen if J.D. Vance obviously doesn't win the 2028 election. And just for all my independents out there, it didn't start with President Trump prosecuting anybody. It started with Democrats prosecuting President Trump. And then they further prosecuted him once he left office. And not just him. Think about it. How many people were locked up under the Biden administration? Just go do the research. You'll see it for yourself, plain as day. All right, now let's go to Michael Cohen because he gives MSDNC a reality check about what's coming here. Accountability, no question about it. And it all started because Letitia James went after the president. Take a look.
I said it on a different show, in a different program, that I believe a first-year law student can actually take these cases to full trial and be successful. Just think about Tish James for a second. When you guys had asked me why I believe Tish James is next and why I believe she'll be held accountable. She's the chief law enforcement agent here in the state of New York. And what did she do? She went after Trump for what? For misstatements to a bank and banking fraud. Well, isn't that exactly what they're charging her now with? The same exact
not really. Not really.
Isn't it exactly the same
facts?
I'm sorry?
She had evidence. In fact, I mean, there's a whole case, right?
Also,
she won for a reason.
And they will have a case against her once Lindsey Halligan brings it to a trial. That's the point I'm trying to make. Again, Republicans are screaming, yay, go Trump accountability. Democrats, of course, we're all screaming, oh, this is political retribution. This is a political revenge tour. I understand that. But this is exactly, she opened up a Pandora's box, if you think about it, about bringing cases against people for business fraud and for banking fraud.
She sure did open that box, and it's something Democrats still don't want to admit. Which brings me to what we see here on the screen from Ground News, the fact that Anderson Cooper, out of all people on CNN, said it was not a great look for Letitia James to threaten to sue Trump after her election. And that's exactly what Michael Cohen was just pointing to. Now, the story here and why I bring Ground News to you here on the screen is the fact that 100% of sources that are leaning right are talking about that announcement from Anderson Cooper. Isn't that interesting? Why is it that the left doesn't want to report on the facts of the matter? Why do they not want to report on the merits? They only want to report on the propaganda. That's why, guys, we use Ground News to research for the show and see what both sides are saying or what one side is failing to say. Now, just to prove our point about how crazy things have gotten for Democrats and the threats that continue to ensue, let's take a look at this clip.
I love you. I love you. Thank you.
Now, let's go back down memory lane and give you a key piece of evidence to why I think the way that I do about this particular situation. Well, thanks to Ground News, they pull in all of the articles based on political leaning. And as we already told you, the left isn't talking about this whatsoever. It's only right-leaning sources. So Fox News put this up. And in the subtitle, they say, CNN's Anderson Cooper criticized New York Attorney General Letitia James on Thursday for threatening to sue President Donald Trump following her 2018 election victory. So 2 years before he actually left office, she was already threatening to take him to court. Now, why would someone do that if they're about law and order and protecting New Yorkers? Yeah, I don't think someone would do that. And what you just saw there in that clip is her at a Mondani rally today, which got heckled and chaos did erupt there shortly, but raising her fist in the air as if she's Black Power. I'm not understanding all that. But here's the bottom line on Ground News. If you guys want to be able to see what both sides are saying, or when one side refuses to report a story and you want to be able to see that in real time, use a tool like Ground News. It will help you do your research so you could critically think for yourself. So if you want to use this tool for yourself, all you have to do is go to ground.news/Devori, or you could download the mobile app. Just use promo code Devori, and it's going to give you access to everything that I showed you in this video, including 40% off the Vantage plan.
You see, I know what it feels like to be attacked for just doing your job. But I also know what it feels like to overcome adversity. And so I stand on solid rock. And I will not bow. I will not break. I will not bend. I will not capitulate. I will not give in. I will not give up. You come for me, you gotta come to all of us. Every single one of us. We're all in this together.
Well, that's what we're dealing with at this point as far as Letitia James is concerned. Her time's coming. No question about it, as Michael Cohen continues to remind MSDNC that all they have to do is find paperwork that she fraudulently filled out, which it's easy to find that because it says it at the bottom when you sign your name. You're testifying to the statements on this paper that it is true. And if you are lying about this, you could be held legally accountable. She knows that, but she thinks it's the government against her. No, it's Donald Trump against you. You went after him. Now he's coming after you. And unfortunately, you're living in a glass house. You got a dirty closet and you're being exposed just like Fonnie Willis. That's why I was telling, we had an interview with Myron Gaines, and I told him it takes a dirty monster to go after a president. That's not a person who wants to live a happy life and is doing the right thing, okay? It takes a certain individual to say, you know what, I'm going to make it my life's mission to prosecute a former president. That I wouldn't do that in my wildest dreams. That's insanity. All right, let's move to our next story, which is also insanity. Now, in case you guys didn't know this, Broadview, Illinois, right, the ICE detention facility, federal authorities have been putting up a gate and barriers to block protesters from obstructing ICE officers from doing their job, right? Makes common sense. Well, guess what Democrats have done? They are now going to the courts to try to get a judge to block them from doing that. They want the gates removed. Take a look.
Officials in Broadview, Illinois are demanding federal authorities remove the additional fencing around the ICE facility immediately. This comes after a federal judge ordered the barrier brought down by midnight local time Tuesday night. Senior correspondent Mike Tobin is in Broadview again tonight.
Violent weekend clashes surrounding the ICE processing facility in Broadview, Illinois, resulted in 22 arrests. This as a U.S. district judge rules that the fence put up as demonstrations grew needs to come down by midnight Tuesday. The judge says it is on municipal land and blocks emergency vehicles. Comparing the fence to the Berlin Wall, the Democratic Illinois House Speaker channeled Ronald Reagan.
Mr. Trump, tear down this fence now.
All right, we actually talked about that individual earlier in our other video, which I'll link to towards the end of this one. Bottom line up front is this is a bunch of political games, and they were able to get a short-term win here because that U.S. District Court judge did issue a temporary restraining order. They have to remove it by Thursday, and we'll see if they actually do or if they appeal it. But something that stood out to me is what the Broadview mayor had to say. Katrina Thompson, she said, the ruling is a validation of local law, and most importantly, pay attention here, a decisive win for public safety. So let me just get this straight. The public is safer now that these protesters and these violent individuals can continue to attack ICE officers. Is that what you're saying? And ICE officers have to defend themselves by shooting pepper spray, detaining these people, arresting these people, getting in altercations with them. That makes the public safer? I'm not following that exactly. She also goes on to say that the judge's decision confirms that the illegal fence constructed by ICE is not only a clear defiance of Broadview's ordinance, but an unacceptable and escalating risk to our Beach Street businesses, their customers, and our first responders. People going to that business can't even go through those protesters. What are you talking about? She also went on to say that now it remains to be seen if ICE will respect the judge's order and dismantle this hazard immediately, or if they will continue their pattern of defiance. That is so interesting. If I want to say, or if I want to think about defiance, what comes to mind is this mayor, okay, that you just heard the statement from, and the Chicago mayor, Brandon Johnson, and the rest of the Democrat Party. But let's hear more on this because leaders from that area were in front of a camera quick to celebrate this. Take a look.
Illinois Congressman Raja Krishnamurthy and former Congressman Luis Gutierrez marched up to the fence.
We demand that I be able to access this facility.
Well, I understand your request, but at this point, I can't authorize that visit.
What about the argument that ICE and Border Patrol are simply enforcing the laws that Congress writes?
We passed the Civil Rights Act in 1964, and tens of thousands of people were brutalized during the Civil Rights Act, so we could be judged on the content of our character, not the color of our skin.
People are being stopped and detained merely because of the way they look. That is illegal. That's unconstitutional.
You know what's interesting about that response, that they're claiming that this is unconstitutional? I've given you guys this advice, especially if you run into some Democrat spewing the same stuff, is, hey, why doesn't the local police department hand over the worst of the worst so ICE doesn't have to go into neighborhoods and get them? If you think ICE is targeting these people, make it easy. Just hand them over. Because you know, and I know, like everybody else knows, there's criminals in those neighborhoods that are not here legally. But you guys refuse to hand them over. You can't have it both ways.
Meantime, 200 Texas National Guardsmen are stuck on a base in a Chicago suburb. A federal appeals court ruled that the Trump administration has the authority to federalize the Guardsmen, but not to deploy them in a state against the wishes of the governor. Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker is urging Texas Governor Greg Abbott to bring his troops home.
He ought to get them the heck out of Illinois and send them back so they can protect the state of Texas instead of invading our state.
The Broadview police chief tells us the fence will be replaced by a gate staffed by local law enforcement. The idea is that emergency vehicles can get through. Protesters, in theory anyway, cannot. Brett, back to you.
Mike Tobin, live.
Yeah, see, here's another question I have for you guys. Just put your answer in the comment section. What is more disturbing to you? The fact that people are trying to obstruct ICE officers from doing their job. They're shining lasers on military helicopters, even medevacs. I mean, they're getting nude, right? All of this craziness stuff that, especially if you're looking in Portland. Again, what is more disturbing? That or the fact that you have left-leaning political pundits and commentators going on to the news and regurgitating these propaganda talking points? Take a listen.
Look, let's remember that protesting peacefully is a right that we all have as American citizens, Audie. And one of the things that we cannot lose sight of here is the egregious violations of civil rights that ICE is involved in every single day in so many communities. They are not there to keep the peace. They are there, I believe, to incite these protests that Donald Trump is now using as an excuse to bring in the federal troops. ICE is violating American citizens' rights. They are detaining American citizens for days on end.
All right, what you just heard there is nothing short of stupidity. Why do I say that? Because it's ultra hyperbolic, if that is the proper term. Nothing she said is rooted in reality. Even if an American citizen was detained, the ultimate crime where they have crossed the line is if an American citizen, someone who is an adult and is not a child of someone who is here illegally, but an American citizen, 32 years old, going to work every day, paying taxes, etc., was born here, was deported. That's when you know ICE has crossed the line. That hasn't happened. They can't name one American citizen who's been deported. But anyways, DHS came out with this response to that ridiculous take from Maria Cardova, is her name on CNN. What you've just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things Americans have ever heard. At no point in your rambling, incoherent statement were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought. Everyone is now dumber for having listened to you. Far from engaging in criminal behavior, federal law enforcement actions have significantly reduced crime in these cities we have been deployed to. Locking up criminals works. Imagine that. Well, imagine what she continues to say. Take a listen.
So the focus of ICE is not to deport violent, criminal, undocumented immigrants. In fact, the vast majority of immigrants that they have detained have absolutely no criminal record. And on top of that, they are detaining American citizens as well. Yes.
But is it a good strategy to antagonize ICE, right? Follow ICE, take a lot of videos. Like, there is an argument that the administration is making that this is itself the threat.
As long as they are not, these protesters or the people who are videotaping the ICE agents are not physically attacking the ICE agents, absolutely, it's within their right, Audie.
So in other words, it took a couple of follow-ups from that CNN host in a softball way to get Maria to admit the truth here. The fact of the matter is, if someone is assaulting ICE officials, they should be arrested immediately and thrown in jail. And Democrats should be, every single day, every single week, condemning that behavior and reminding people to peacefully protest. If you assault an ICE officer, you are damaging our credibility in this movement. You don't hear them say things like that. Makes sense to me. Oh, of course, it's common sense, right? That's what this show is all about. And it's something that Democrats are allergic to. And I think that is the bottom line to this story so far. And now we go to our next update, which is a story that's kind of been flying under the radar. So as you guys know, Pete Hegseth announced new grooming standards, right? Your physical appearance in the military, including your body weight standard, including the physical fitness test, especially for combat positions. But this particular story has taken a turn regarding Black people. Yes, I'm at it again today. Today seems to be all about the Black community as I wrap up these videos. Now, what's interesting about this story is because he's getting rid of beardos, right, where you can get a waiver when it comes to not having to shave anymore because you get ingrown hairs. Well, people are starting to believe that he's doing this because he wants to phase out Black people out of the military. I know it. It's crazy when you hear it. But why don't we take a look at this story and talk about it?
Inside this barbershop in Midtown Sacramento, the chatter is buzzing about a personal topic that hits close to home.
That's the thing, it's going to affect a lot of soldiers of color.
Richard Davis is the owner of Side Door 1930 Barbershop. 30 years ago, he served in the U.S. Army and National Guard.
Me, I didn't even have any facial hair, so it was like every morning you get up, you had to shave, and I'm shaving my skin.
He says some black soldiers he served with weren't as lucky.
They get the ingrown hairs, the irritated skin. Some would have hyperpigmentation. Some would have, different types of scarring.
I'm the perfect person to respond to this because I had that same issue when I served in the military. I'll show you a picture of myself here shortly, but first, why don't I show you a picture of what it looks like when you have the ingrown hairs, as you guys can see on that photo. That's pretty accurate for someone who has it in the worst way, okay? It could get really annoying. It could be painful too. No question about it. There are things that you can do to mitigate this type of condition, meaning the type of razor, the process of how you shave, the temperature that you shave with, the direction you shave. I tried it all. So I know this very well, like the back of my hand. Anyways, the main talking point that I want to rebuke first is the question here. Is he trying to remove black servicemen? No, he's not trying to remove black servicemen. Black servicemen used to shave every single day, just like everybody else. And then the standards got a little soft. That's true. And exceptions were made, and then it got out of control. That's what happened. It got out of control. It wasn't just black and Latino people doing it. It was white people. It was literally everybody who can find a way to get a waiver could get one, even if they didn't really have the condition. So what he's doing is saying, hey, you guys have gone too far. Let's go all the way back to the beginning. And I guarantee you in time, they will make those waivers they will allow those waivers again. I guarantee it. It's only a matter of time. But at any rate, continue to listen to this story.
Robert says some of them required shaving waivers, something the military is phasing out.
It all starts with physical fitness and appearance.
In late September, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth announced new military standards aimed at reshaping all branches of the armed forces. Among the rules, new grooming policies.
We're going to cut our hair, shave our beards, and adhere to standards. No more beardos. The era of rampant and ridiculous shaving profiles is done.
Prior to this speech, shaving profiles were granted to service members with pseudofolliculitis barbae, or PFB, also known as razor bumps.
It is a pretty common medical condition where close shaving induces inflammation in the skin.
Dr. Oma Agbai is a dermatologist at UC Davis Health. She says PFB is commonly seen in African Americans and Latinos who have curly, coarse hair.
Here's a photo of me after I graduated officer candidate school. This is after I reached the rank of E7, Sergeant First Class in the Army. And as you can see, your boy, his skin's pretty smooth. So the question is, what did I do to actually deal with this issue? Because I had it bad, by the way. And where I would get it the most would be right under here. And even right now, I have an ingrown hair, and I don't even shave most of the time. And I'll get it back here as well when they do the fade, okay? And that's just the reality of being an African-American. So there's got to be something, right? Well, of course there is. It's called 10 Skin Solutions for Unsightly Razor Bumps, Ingrown Hair, and Razor Burns. I'm not selling it to you guys, of course. I'm just being a little funny. But I bought at least 50 of these when I was in the military. And as long as I put that on, as soon as I shaved, I didn't have an issue. And the other thing that most people don't understand is sometimes they're just too lazy to actually find the solution. I'm not saying every single black person in the military is that way. But I remember I just used to be like, there's nothing I can do, until I ran into someone who was a black man, and he was a model. He was a model, and he had the same issue, and he showed me this. So if you are a veteran, or you know someone who is a veteran who struggles with this and is black, show them this video. This might just help them. And again, this is just me being a part of the solution. Okay. Now let's go ahead and finish the rest of this story.
This occurs with very tightly coiled hair growing back into the skin when it's closely shaved. And when it grows back into the skin actually treats it like a foreign body.
If left untreated, it can lead to painful infections and in many cases, permanent scarring. As a former service member, Robert questions the Pentagon's new policy.
There's a lot of things that need to be taken in consideration as a soldier. because everything is not based on appearance, based on functionality.
Irvin Carr is sitting nearby getting his beard trimmed. He's never served in the military, but has strong opinions on the clean-shaven policy.
Because essentially, like, if you're making your soldiers shave, somebody gets an infection on their face, they're out of combat, you know?
All right, so what you just heard there is what Democrats normally do, and people who lack critical thinking skills, they always go to the worst case scenario, okay? There's no evidence of that actually happening at an alarming rate in the military. When I served, I never heard of someone not being able to show up to the unit, not be able to participate in physical fitness, not able to deploy because they had issues with ingrown hair. Get real. That doesn't exist, okay? I think it's just a joke that is what they're reaching for. I think at the end of the day, we need to pay the price of being a military soldier or veteran. It is a privilege to be in the military, especially for the men and women who have given their lives for us to have the opportunity in the first place. Now, I can go down a whole tangent about how I feel about all this, especially for the men and women who sacrificed their lives, but I'm going to tell you like this. The military has no room for excuses. When you're talking about life or death, no one cares about your ingrown hairs. That's the bottom line to it. I think that's the least we could do to show up, be presentable, and follow what the standards are. It is what it is. Complaining and crying about it isn't going to solve anybody's issues. In the military, there's a rhythm. This is the time where everything is very strict and high standard. You know what's going to happen in about probably 2 years? It's going to start to dip a little bit, because what's going to happen is people who are in leadership positions are going to make a good case to say, hey, can we make an exception for these group of people because of this issue? Here's the evidence, and it's going to be approved. It's just the way that it works. All right, so I'll get off my soapbox. Let's hear from you guys in the comment section below to these stories that we talked about in this video today. Of course, starting with the threats from Democrats, you heard them admitting it all out loud when they reach back into power, if we allow them to get back into power, that is, especially for people who know they have to show up and vote in the midterms and the general election. They will prosecute their political opponents. No question about it. They're basically admitting what they accused the president of doing. I find that to be interesting. Also, what do you guys make of this Broadview ICE detention facility, this district court judge ruling they have to remove the fence? Did you find it to be a safety issue? Let me know. And then finally, give me a reaction to the male grooming standards for black men. Just give me everything you got in the comment section below. Now we go to our next video, where the president clearly has achieved something most people will never be able to say in their lifetime, and that is achieving peace in the Middle East. Well, this came with some people celebrating it, but it also came with some people hating on it. So if you guys missed out on that update and more from earlier today, all you have to do is click on that video, because it's coming up right now.